So a while ago, I used to do a series where I would sit down and go over the sort of things that I've watched over the past week, and I thought that I would, well, bring that back. So let's talk about films that I've sat down and watched over the past, or however long, because this is like the first one again. So let's do it. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Yeah, so I used to talk about what I'd watched over the previous week, whether it be TV and film. This is stuff outside of kind of the stuff that I've already reviewed. So, you know, and this gives me the opportunity to talk about some films that I probably won't ever sit down and review individually, possibly. You never know, they might come around again. Who knows? But let's just start, shall we? So obviously we had Bad Boys 4 come out a couple of weeks ago in the cinemas, and I really enjoyed it. Thusly, you know, made me revisit Bad Boys 1, 2 and 3. The three Bad Boys films. What's it like, a 17-year break between 2 and 3, I believe. 3 was a COVID film, wasn't it? I mean, it came out during COVID. Went straight to streaming, if I remember. It was one of them ones, sort of day and date kind of thing. So, the Bad Boys franchise. Obviously, the first two films directed by Michael Bay. I think the first one, Bad Boys, was his first film, if I'm not mistaken. Martin Lawrence and Will Smith. It's great. It's funny how in the first two films, obviously, Martin Lawrence had top billing. And then now it's Will Smith that gets top billing. But, yeah, the Bad Boys films. Okay, so that's the one with Tia Leone. Decent film, strong film. Joe Pantoliano propping up in each film. Bad Boys 2 is probably my favourite of the franchise. I think it's the strongest film. Visual flair, it's the, yeah, one of the best ones, because it's when Michael Bay... He was a bit more restrained on the first one with what he could do and I suppose budget. But here it was like, you know, the sort of freedom to do what he wants to do. And like I said, Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, they play off of each other so well in their respective roles in these films. Truly strong movies. And then 17 years later, we got a return to form with... a return to the franchise, shall we say, with Will Smith looking like he hasn't aged at all, and Martin Lawrence having put on a few pounds. Now, for me, this is the weakest film in the franchise. Reason being, it's a good film. I enjoyed it more on this watch than what I did before when I watched it previously, when it first came out. But it's the ending. It's the bit where they go to Mexico. That is it Mexico? That's not Mexico, is it? No, that's in the second one. They go Mexico in the second one, Mexico Cartel. No, or is that Cuba? I can't remember. I'm getting them all mixed up. Is it Mexico they go to? I think it is in this one where they're in the. This is the one in the big house. I know it's in the big house where where it's burning and all that sort of thing. The helicopter crashes through the roof and all that sort of nonsense. I get bored during that bit, that whole segment of the film, and it kind of lets me down there. Now, it's quite interesting watching this film after watching the fourth one, because Will Smith's son, in the context of the story, that guy who doesn't know that he's his son, that Will Smith didn't know he had a son, he's a harsh fella in this film. He's harsh, you know. And come the next one, he's helping him out and that sort of thing, but he's killed the captain and all this sort of a thing. And I get the redemption, but he's responsible for some brutal deaths in this movie. And then by the end of the fourth one, he's let go by Will Smith's character. I suppose he feels that he's redeemed himself or something like that. I don't know. But they're good films. they're fun movies. They're fun movies. So anyway, so a while ago, me and the wife watched Erin Brockovich. She put Erin Brockovich on, which I think is a good film. Albert Finney is great in it. I think he steals a lot of scenes from Julia Roberts, but Julia Roberts is very strong in it. And then, just this week gone, my missus has gone, let's watch Pretty Woman. And I've got to get these stickers off. These damn stickers. Pretty Woman. Richard Gere. Now, I'm not a fan of Richard Gere. Sounds like it's really pelting it down with rain out there at the moment. Wow, it sounds heavy. Because I'm in a converted attic, so I can hear it on the roof. I like it at night time. I love the rain at night time. I find it so soothing and comforting when I can hear it. The louder the better. Anyway, Julia Roberts, Pretty Woman. A great film, a great film. I enjoy visiting films of this sort of era. This was 1990. I had to ask Alexa about that one. I'm trying from a bit sniffling. It's hay fever season as well. And I had the jab, and it doesn't seem to have done me much good whatsoever. Anyway, so 1990 for Pretty Woman. Does it glorify prostitution? Probably. But it's one of them, it's sort of fairy tale story, isn't it? It's more an adult fairy tale story where, you know, like Disney does, a woman of, you know, what do I want to say? Not really done much in life, you know, sort of scraping the bottom of the barrel, so to speak, meets Prince Charming and he whisks her away. It's that story for more of an adult audience. But it's a good film. It's a good film. And the reason I like visiting films of that era is because even the worst films of that era can seem better than a lot of the films that we're given today. You know, a lot of films that we're given today are pretty tripe in comparison to what we used to get back in the 80s, 90s, probably even the early 2000s. I don't know where it started going downhill when Hollywood became, you know, completely devoid of any fresh ideas. You know, I don't know. But, yeah, so it's a strong film. Good performance by Julia Roberts. Is, you know, but then there's kind of a natural progression. Do you find this? There's a natural progression from watching one film to another, and thusly, it brought me to Notting Hill. I said to the wife the other night, "Oh, fancy watching Notting Hill?" She said, "I put it on." So this is hands down my favourite romantic comedy. I think this is a great film. You know, I wouldn't have watched it. But again, it's that fairy tale story, but a reversal of it. You know, the man is just a normal man. He meets Hollywood's top leading lady, Anna Scott, played by Julia Roberts. She just happens to walk into his Notting Hill bookshop one day, and stuff happens. What can I say? They sort of hit it off, and romance ensues. But yeah, it's that kind of fairy tale, Disney-esque fairy tale storytelling again, but a reversal of it. You know, Pretty Woman, it was, you know, Prince Charming. Here it's, you know, complete opposite. She's the one who's, you know, and there's that film recently, Jennifer Lopez and Owen Wilson made a film where she's the big singer and he's just a normal man, and throws up that placard or something, and it felt like a remake of Notting Hill, essentially, that film. I can't remember the name. I do have it. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but I have the movie. Marry Me. Marry Me was the film I'm talking about. It kind of feels like a kind of remake of that. But yeah, again, I enjoy visiting that film. I think it's a really good film. Yeah, fantastic film. Anyway, moving on. And like I said, this kind of natural progression of watching movies. The Venom 3 trailer. You know what this is bringing me to, don't you? So Venom 3 trailer. We get a Venom 3 later on in the year. Thusly, I watched the first Venom movie. Now, Venom is a character that I know from the comics, that I am very familiar with from the comics, that I've known from like the late 80s to now. I enjoyed a Venom film. I think it's okay. I don't think it's the greatest of films, but it's obviously the best of the Sony non-Spider-Man films. Morbius, Madam Web, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Few issues with it that I have is Eddie Brock looks like a drug addict from the get-go in the film. He looks like he's down on his luck from the minute you enter into the movie. Tom Hardy looking like he's just high on whatever. But then he loses everything in the context of the story, and then he goes downhill, and that's how he should look at that stage in the movie, not in the opening of the film. But yeah, you know, nonsense. But anyway, the other thing I have, there's one scene that I just can't get past in this movie, right? And it's the bad guy. He's been infected with the symbiote that infects him, and he's having a face-to-face with that symbiote. It's out of his back, and it's come round there, and it's like that there in front of him. And it's so obvious that he's talking to nothing. I mean, it's so obvious that he's looking, not so much talking, but looking at nothing more than a little rubber ball or a little ping pong on the stick that's in front of him, and they're saying, direct your gaze at this, because this is where we're going to put the face of the creature. Only, hold on a minute, this doesn't work, because literally during this conversation his eyes are fixated on this one point, which is obviously a small ball. Why don't they put up something a bit bigger, like you know, a picture of the face of a symbiote, so you're looking at it? Because human nature, the way our eyes work is, and you think about this and you try it next time you're talking to someone, talking to your partner, talking to your kids, whatever it may be, right? But let's take Caesar here as an example, right? So if I'm talking to Caesar, Caesar's in front of me, and this is the kind of distance this symbiote face is, right? If I'm talking, my eyes are scanning the face. My eyes are constantly in flux. They're moving all the time, doing that, and that's what you do when you're talking to someone, because it's not just about the voice, it's about the words, it's about the facial expressions and the movements and all this sort of a thing that you're looking and you're reading into. That's what the eyes do. Only in this film, when there's this, he's presented with this big lumbering face with all these teeth and jaw and tongues and these big eyes, your eyes ain't going to be fixated on one single point of that face while you're talking to it. Right, your eyes are going to be, you know, moving about, and so it takes me out of the film. And so I'm talking about one scene, but it's a fun film. Is it Venom that I know from the comics? Not really. In this sort of film, they try and make Venom very kind of likable, lovable, even like a sort of lovable rogue. Even though he's biting people's heads off, there's a cuteness to him. Let's give him a cuteness, shall we say? Anyway. Obviously, that led me to watching Let There Be Carnage. Now, Let There Be Carnage disappointed me when I first watched it. It wasn't as bad on a rewatch now, I don't think. But it's a film fraught with problems. You know, it's got a lot to like, but Carnage is such the polar opposite of Venom as a character in the comics. I mean, you know, Cletus Cassidy is a psychopath. He's a serial killer, and gets imbued with the powers of a symbiote, and that just enhances his viciousness, his ferociousness, and you don't really get that sense in the film too much. You don't really get it. And what I'm trying to say is that the character of Carnage is wasted. Completely wasted. This should be Venom's big bad. You know, this should be, you know, the Red Skull to Captain America. I'm trying to think of some villains. And what Venom is to Spider-Man. And it's thrown away in one movie. You know, I kind of have the same feeling with Ultron in Age of Ultron. That Ultron is done and dusted within one film, and Ultron should be this much bigger threat than what he actually was. But this is not about that. This is about Venom and Carnage. So I feel that it's kind of wasted on this character. This film wastes Carnage completely, which is such a shame. Such a big tease for the character at the end of the first one. And speaking of teases, obviously this film ends with the tease of Venom entering into the MCU world because of the events of Spider-Man No Way Home. Only that's then undone at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, when he shuffles back to his own world, leaving behind a little blob of goo. And that's it. That's it. That's what that finale scene amounted to. A tease of Tom Hardy meeting up with Tom Holland, Spider-Man, and you finally getting a proper Venom fighting Spider-Man film or whatever, and it amounted to nothing. That's really bad. But yeah, I think the biggest issue with the Venom films is they haven't progressed through their two films in any way, shape or form, and I get the feeling that's going to happen with the third one. Now, what I mean by that is that the first Venom film is symbiote on symbiote, the second film is symbiote on symbiote, the third film is going to be symbiote on symbiote. You got Stephen Graham in that second one, great British actor, and inevitably he's going to be Toxin in the third film. He's in the trailer for the third film. They can't leave that story thread undone if that is the last Venom film. Not unless they're going to do a Toxin spin-off. You never know. But anyway, but again, you've seen these other symbiotes come down from space in the trailer with these symbiote creature things. But again, it's symbiote on symbiote fight in action. It's the same thing. You're giving me the same thing in the previous films. I don't feel there's a progression of character, a growth of character, or anything like that. It's just like I'm watching the same film yet again. That's the issue I have. Anyway, so the last film, and this film I sat down and watched last night, and it is The Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch. Keira Knightley, Mark Strong is in this. I always like Mark Strong when he's in something. It's a story of Alan Turing and the breaking of the Enigma machine during the war effort, World War II. Strong performance by Cumberbatch in this. Strong performance. I think it's a fantastic film. Okay, it's based on truth. I don't know how much of it actually is or isn't in a sense, but it's a strong movie with well acted, well directed. It's not boring any way through, and it's about the breaking, his story, his life story, the breaking of this code. Obviously, the film is then goes into the sort of life of him as the film's progressing, and the fact that he was homosexual, and how we as a country used to send people to prison for that and chemically castrate. In the context of his life, he was after the war effort and him essentially helping to end the war with the breaking of the Enigma machine. He was sort of found by the police to be arrested for lewd acts, shall we say, in this sense, paying someone to do whatever they do to him, you know, and he's given the choice of 2 years in prison or chemical castration. He chose chemical castration so he could stay at home and work on his computer, because he is like the grandfather of computers, so to speak. And he ended up killing himself after a year of being chemically castrated. And obviously the truth about the Enigma machine stayed hidden for 50 years, so, you know, a lot of what he'd done stayed top secret for those 50 years, and it's quite a sad story in that sense. It truly is, but it's played to perfection by Cumberbatch here in this movie. It is, and yeah, who else did I see in it? Do you remember Pennyworth? The TV show Pennyworth lasted 3 seasons. The story of the young Alfred Pennyworth, DC Batman, and the guy who plays Pennyworth was in this as his sort of best friend in his young school days. Alan Turing's best friend. He only had a small role in it, but I sort of had to. I was watching it and I was like, hold on a minute, is that? Let's go on IMDb. Yes, Thingy from Pennyworth. Okay, great. But yeah, a solid film. Now, natural progression. I talk about natural progression from one film into the other, and I find this happens a lot with me. And do you find this as well? You watch one film and then it inspires you to go on and watch something else. So I think that my next watch this week, and I've already said to the wife that I want to watch this next, is Cumberbatch again in The Courier. I think that'll be my first watch of this week. Yeah, I think so. It's again, I remember that being a good film. It's still sealed, look. Still sealed. Probably pick that up in CEX now for like a couple of quid. But yeah, so those were the watches for the week. Now, on top of that, there was some TV stuff. I'll let you know. I watched the episode 3 of The Acolyte, Star Wars The Acolyte, the Space Lesbian episode. It's rubbish. This is the worst I've seen from Star Wars. This show is yeah. I don't listen to all the negativity prior to going into something, but yet this show isn't good at all. It's boring. It's dull characters. And then I watched episode 1 of The Boys season 4. Now I know that 3 episodes had dropped. I watched episode 1. It felt over long at an hour. I think that for me, maybe the freshness of this show definitely doesn't exist anymore, and I'm finding it quite hard watch. I hope it kind of picks up pace in the 2nd and 3rd episode. I'll get round to them this week. So let me know what you've been watching. What have you had on? Now, I know I've watched a few films. I don't actually have a TV license. I don't pay a TV license. Yeah, I don't watch terrestrial TV. I don't watch live broadcast TV. So thusly, I don't need to have a TV license. Although they keep trying to hammer on to me with these letters through the door, which I just then ignore. The TV license thing really does get to me. I dislike the BBC with a vengeance. I really do. But yeah, I don't watch broadcast TV, so therefore no need to pay a TV license, although they'll try and have you believe that you do need one legally. It's such a scam. Such scammers, in a sense. It should be made illegal, the thing that they do. They harass and harass and harass with letters and this. I'm not going into that, but there we go. So that's why I just pretty much watch films and things like that. As streaming services go, we've got Netflix. My wife wanted Netflix for whatever reason she wanted it for. We did have Disney Plus, but I got shot of that when the password sharing came to an end, and my kids couldn't watch it at their respective places. And yeah, so and I watch other things via other means, shall we say? You don't know what that means, but yeah. So there we go. There's my watches for the week. Let me know, or week and a bit, I should say. So I'll be back next Sunday with another what have I watched this week, and we'll see. Will The Courier be that first watch of the week, or something else come up? I don't know yet. We should see how I feel. It's all about feeling, really, and what you're in the mood for. But yeah. So anyway, I'll speak to you soon. Take care all and goodbye.